As I was walking down here, one of the things that I reminded myself when I'm travelling around the world, which I do quite a bit, is to sort of like try and remember where I am. And inherent in that is understanding the context. And every day now, I'm also trying to make that part of my practice so that when I'm talking to some startup companies, I'm actually really thinking contextually about where they are, what they're trying to do. And within New Zealand, I think we're often, perhaps a little bit lacking in actually understanding that. At the end of the day, we're all on this thing, and it's a closed system, and we see lots of these static photographs. What we often forget is that we are being drawn right as we speak through the universe by the sun at 70,000 kilometres an hour. So there's something very interesting in complexity, and complexity becoming simplicity. Offshore, people generally, the average day person, if you're in Minnesota or something like that, probably thinks that New Zealand is a Tasmania, okay? They also think that the New Zealand economy is pretty much about a nice fluffy lamb sitting in a paddock. Of course, we actually know the truth. And if I think there's one thing that I'm really proud of being here today, is that New Zealand actually demonstrates and has demonstrated through many, many decades that we do, can, and are still actively voicing the truth. Whether it's giving women suffrage, the first country in the world to provide women the vote, whether it's cradle to grave social welfare, whether it's fighting big values-based issues like apartheid, or whether it's grappling with big, issues of fundamental humanity like the anti-nuclear movement. And probably within the last 5 years, I've been lucky enough to spend some time, largely in New York, with some pretty cool people. Christiana Figueres is actually a really amazing lady, and it was in a conversation with her, the Harvard Club, that I started to realise that actually, this whole thing about New Zealand speaking the truth is actually reflected and respected offshore. That was then backed up when I ended up having a meal with Madeleine Albright, who's about this high, and Nick from Picton turns up and say, hello, and within about 5 minutes she was like, New Zealand this, New Zealand this, New Zealand. We do not appreciate just how significant our global brand is. The brand of governance, leadership, speaking the truth, okay? I was then thinking in relation to what we're saying today, if you look back through technology development, we use the phrase megatrends, and the reality is a small country on the edge of the world, blah, 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 with fluffy lambs as our economy, joke, we haven't really been able to participate in many megatrends. Colonialisation, I guess, was one, and it's sort of like that also depends on which side of the equation you were about whether that was good or bad. We then had invention of the silicon chip. We didn't really participate much in that, although Bill Buckley's done some cool stuff on the edge of it. We didn't really participate in the PC movement. Clean tech, possibly. That might still be there as an opportunity. But the one I want to present today is actually GovTech. So one of the exciting points that we can actually all together in this room achieve today is actually become the pioneering group for an entirely new sector of the innovation economy for New Zealand. GovTech is actually starting to get a bit of traction offshore. I think recently there's been a venture firm announced in the Bay Area, and they'd raised I think $23 or $29 million. It's at a scale where we can actually do that. So I was starting to think about how we can actually, leverage our geopolitical cut through the brand that we have, internationally, and actually turn this and translate it into, a model where we can benefit both from a domestic basis, as the ministers have pointed out, but also turn it into an export opportunity for the country. Why? Basically because it touches everything. Every country in the world has some form of governance and government. Demand side and supply side, dynamics exist. We're also at a 200-year inflection point, basically, with the information economy, and as we've heard with some of the pictures, talking about, artificial intelligence or intelligent systems starting to become, I guess, more of the norm. And I think there's also a offensive-defensive issue for New Zealand, and that is that unless we engage, our sovereignty is going to leak away, because basically information is so portable and mobile now. Boundaries are basically disappearing. They're meaning increasingly little. So it's an open opportunity, and I want to put the leadership challenge out there to everyone in this room, because it's not just one party, it's not just government, not just the private sector, but it's all of us together, and let's embrace our scale. If there's something that New Zealand can do, it is actually have really good, meaningful conversations between public and private. We also do have this can-do attitude. We'll get in and make it work, we'll find a way of making it happen. And I'm really interested in studying, raising the question about us leveraging our geopolitical brand. Building a new tech sector has quite a nice ring about it, and I don't know that we've necessarily voiced anything like that previously. It's leveraging core competitive advantage, and I think, this whole idea of co-investment, public and private, is actually really, really interesting and powerful and defendable position for us to take. In the everyday life and startup world, people have great ideas and they try and nobble people as they're walking up Cuba Street or whatever to get user cases. One of the natural advantages that obviously the public sector brings to this is the ability to get small-scale ideas to big-scale in one step. That is incredibly powerful and incredibly valuable. It's an asset which actually we need to leverage. And it's like a 1 + 1 = 3 sort of equation, which investors anywhere in the world will get very excited about. So the optics, just as a general rule, and we're talking about big marketplaces, in the US, between federal and state government alone on IT, it's $175 billion. I also was thinking about how we can leverage the fact that we're part of the Commonwealth, and whether the Commonwealth becomes a channel to market opportunity for us to start to export some of the ideas that you've actually seen today and are about to see this afternoon. So I love this idea of actually sort of basically having our cake and eating it, basically providing solutions to domestic pain points. These are real issues, but also turning this into a global export opportunity for New Zealand, because you know what? People sort of expect it from us in New York. It's up to us to deliver it. We will probably find it a lot easier to get cut through than we can possibly imagine. So, at the end of the day, it's all great unless we can turn this into action. So my real challenge, where I want to leave us all as a result of this event today, is actually walking through those doors there and not going home, staying and actually thinking and considering how you as an individual or you within your employment can actually help and become part of these teams and actually help translate this into action. Because unless we do that, this is just like a nice way to spend an afternoon. And I'm not here for that. Cynicism is actually cheap and easy. Salim Ismail, the founder of Singularity University in Mountain View, tells a great story, I think it's about Amazon, where basically one of the operating rules within Amazon is that they have a presumption to say yes. Okay? So if you decide as a senior manager you're going to say no, you have to write a 2-page article about specifying the reasons no, and post it on their internal intranet so everyone can see it. So what about today, between us, we've got ministers here and a good representation of the tech community. What about if we walk out of here and say the presumption today is that we will say yes to help each and every one of the teams that have presented, because you know what? They bloody well deserve it. Okay? And small steps can actually change the world. So it's ours to lose, this thing. I want to celebrate the leadership. Again, I'm really proud to be as a Kiwi here. The fact that we've got ministerial support for this, the work the officials have done and the agencies have done, it wouldn't be as easy to do this in a lot of other countries in the world. So I think, we just need to spend about 3 seconds just reflecting on that. And we are all in this together, and, this is about getting stuff done, and I know that there are a lot of colleagues from the innovation community, from the startup community that are here today that are equally as passionate about making things happen as I am. So I look forward to the balance of the presentations, and I just want to finish with a comment. We can actually do big stuff. Don't ever forget that. New Zealand does do big stuff. We sort of forget that we do it. Even in this event itself, 5 years' time, we might think, I was actually there, because now it might be, a $2 billion market sector. I don't know. And it brought me back to thinking about a guy who I was lucky enough to have a conversation with about 6 months before he died. He was 93 when I had a conversation. So William Pickering came from Havelock and Marlborough, where I live, and I was involved in putting a memorial together with him. And so to celebrate, it also happens that Ernest Rutherford also went to school in Havelock, which is really interesting. So I said, had my question. I said to old Willie, as the locals would call him, I said to him, what was the tipping point in your career? And he told this great story. So basically standing about this time of year on the back of his grandparents' lawn in Havelock, and he looked up at the sky, and he said, he suddenly thought that if I'm here and I can see the Milky Way, then I can be there. Now, I'm not suggesting that we're all going to become space scientists, but I am suggesting that there is a lineage of changing the world, of thinking big, and actually executing on it that New Zealand has done that we perhaps don't reflect enough about. I think that from a timing perspective, we have a real opportunity right now to lead in values-based technology development for the world based on this GovTech sector. So I welcome you all to become part of this, because I'll be doing the best that I can to make it happen, but we actually need all of you. So thanks very much.